Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Forecast. In today's video I'll be going through my Premier League predictions for game week 3. Starting off with the first game of the week and the early kickoff between Chelsea and Fulham. Looking into this game, Chelsea have started alright and Fulham have also started alright. Chelsea had a draw with Crystal Palace, which I don't think is as bad as a point as maybe people are making out. They could have lost this game. Obviously, they had the Eze free kick, but I think overall they played alright and they probably deserved their point. Looking at some of the previous results between these two sides, I'd like to mainly highlight the last two games when it's been Maresca against Marco Silva. Chelsea have lost and won one game. Both 2-1 and both decided by late goals. Chelsea probably deserved to win the game at Stamford Bridge and Fulham managed to nick it really late on. And Fulham and Chelsea probably deserved to draw the other game and Chelsea managed to nick it late on. I still see a very similar result occurring in this game and I'm actually going to go with a 2-1 win to Chelsea. This is despite their injury problems. Chelsea have still got a couple of injury problems. Cole Palmer might be fit. It sounds like he's probably going to be fit for this game. Badiashile and Cole will also out for Chelsea, which will mean that Chalobah and Tosin will play. I don't think that centre-power partnership's that bad, and I think they'll be alright to keep them out and win 2-1. Moving on to Manchester United vs Burnley. Manchester United are obviously coming off that embarrassing loss to Grimsby. I'm not going to do a specific review on that game, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I actually think's wrong with Manchester United, how they can fix it, and who's the problem. Is it Amarin? Is it the owners? Or is it actually just the players? What's the problem? So if you want to see that, check it out. It will be probably coming out a day after this video. Moving on to the actual game though, I do still think United may just have enough to get over the line. I think this is mainly because Amarin will demand the response and I think he'll get that response and United are going to win this game 1-0. I don't think it's going to be a blowout because Burnley are very solid defensively still, I think. But Burnley won't score. They just can't score against these sort of sides, I don't think. I think they're going to really struggle this season to score goals. Broja's lacking match fitness as well, even though I don't think that's really a use for Burnley. I don't think Broja's going to be the difference between this game. What could be the difference could be Martinez being out, but Luke Shaw is there to cover. So I do think United will win. Moving on to one of the most important games of the weekend between Sunderland and Brentford. And yes, this is two teams that will probably finish down the bottom of the table come the end of the season. But this is why the game is so important. This is two teams that will be desperately trying to survive this year. And this game will really give us a good understanding of who's more likely to survive and who has a chance of surviving more in Sunderland's case. Sunderland were really impressive in their first game, winning 3-0. But West Ham have proven in the last couple of weeks how shit they really might be. They're not mobile midfield. Graham Potter needs to go, and this West Ham team is a real threat of going down if they don't get a new manager in soon. But I still think West Ham will sort it out and they'll find a way, which makes me think, okay, so then will Sunderland be able to pick up enough points to sort of compete with this West Ham and maybe this Brentford side even? Sunderland proved last week that maybe that game was a fluke against West Ham when they lost 2-0. But let's see, will Sunderland be able to fare against a team like Brentford? I think they can. I really do think that the stadium's light. If it's up, Sunderland can find a way to get the 3 points. Looking at this from a Brentford perspective, Brentford started really poorly in their game against Nottingham Forest in the first week and really looked like a contender to go down. But then they played very well against Villa. And we saw from Brentford last season, they've got a very good home record, which makes me a bit concerned for Brentford for this game against Sunderland. Looking at the injuries, Ballard's out for Sunderland. I don't think this is much of a miss. He's a big aerial threat and this has made people excited, but actually he's quite weak defensively for Sunderland and can be at fault for goals at times. Looking at sort of Brentford, Wissett is not playing. He's not suspended as it says. He's just refusing to train and play. I don't agree with players doing this, and I think he could be almost a Newcastle player by the time this game starts. I believe and I also hope that Sunderland can find a way to get the job done and really make this relegation battle good this season. And for that reason, I'm backing the Mackems and going for a 1-0 win. Come on, the Sunderland. Moving on to Spurs versus Bournemouth. This is a game which feels really unpredictable, and I'm still unsure about who's actually going to win this game. There's been win, losses, and draws between these sides over the last couple of years, which really doesn't help me in trying to decide an actual winner for this game, because I do think this will be a winner, and I don't think this will be a draw game. Looking at sort of how both sides have started this season, Spurs have started brilliantly, winning 2-0 against Manchester City, which was a very impressive result away from home, And I thought they would draw, but a lot of people thought they'd lose, and understandably so. And they really proved a lot of people wrong. They've also won 3-0 against Burnley, a very comprehensive win against actually a very decent defensive side in Burnley. They can't score, but they can defend. And this is really impressive to see that Spurs have kept 2 clean sheets, especially against a side like Manchester City. Looking at Bournemouth have actually started pretty well. They lost to Liverpool 4-2, but they competed for most of that game, and Semenyo showed some really real quality on the break, and Bournemouth were probably unlucky not to walk away from that game with a point. They also won their game against Wolves. Granted, Wolves were down to 10 men, but Bournemouth always looked like the better side, and they deserved that result. So that doesn't make it much easier, because both sides have started off pretty well. But something that may help me decide is the injury list. Spurs' injuries are a problem. They've got Kulusevski out, Udogie potentially, and Maddison. Bournemouth don't really have an injuries notes. They've got Unal out, obviously, but he's not hugely important, I don't think. But in saying this, I still think Spurs, his start to me, has shown that Thomas Frank's adaptable. He's very good at going up against other managers, as we saw him absolutely outclass Pep Guardiola, and he was in fact my manager of the week for last weekend. And for that reason, I think Spurs are going to win 3-1 against Bournemouth. Moving on to Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Everton. A game which actually really feels really important for Wolves. They've lost their first 2 games without scoring, and they need to show to everyone that they're not going to be a team that gets dragged down like it does feel like they do, and then they have to sort of rely on some spending money in January to sort of get them out of trouble. And we've seen this sort of trend with Wolves, and it often results in their manager being sacked. I don't think this is going to happen, because I think Vitor Pereira is a quality coach. Looking at sort of Wolves' form, against Bournemouth, they struggled, and against Manchester City, they also struggled. In the Bournemouth game, they were unlucky to go down to 10 men, obviously. That really didn't help them, but they were also poor for most of the game. And against Manchester City, they probably didn't deserve to lose 4-0, but they obviously, at points, they looked pretty shit. Defensive mistakes from Agbadou and Jose Sarr. Maybe the game should have finished 3-1. I do sort of think, though, we saw against the West Ham game, I know it's in the Cup, but when Strand Larsen came on, feed him and he will score. He's that sort of striker. He got 15 goals last year in the Prem, and I think Strand Larsen will score, considering we've sort of seen the news now that Newcastle are probably not going to get him, and that if Strand Larsen moves, it will probably be next summer. I think Wolves need to keep hold of them, just to make sure they get Premier League survival. Looking at Everton have had a bit of a mixed start. They lost their first game to Leeds. They were unlucky in how they lost, obviously the Tarkowski handball, but Everton also didn't deserve to get anything from that game. Their first 45 minutes of that game was shocking. I thought Moyes adjusted all right, and they should have dropped Dewsbury Hall back, and Everton looked more solid. But they didn't deserve to win after their first half, and they probably were lucky to only lose 1-0. Everton went on to win their second game, though, against Brighton at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, obviously Everton's new stadium. I do sort of look at this game, and I go, I can't quite pick a winner, and for that reason, I've gone with a 1-1 draw. I think Wolves will get Molineux up, and I think they'll find a way to get a point. From an Everton perspective, I think they'll be searching for the 3 points. I think they're a team that don't need to worry about relegation now, and they can more look at, can we push Europe with the quality they've got like Grealish and Jai, but I think they'll just fall short and draw 1-1. Moving on to Leeds United versus Newcastle. This is going to be an interesting game. Alan Road is going to be absolutely up for this game, as they know this could be a game where they could pick up 3 points and really build on some more momentum, like I was saying with Sunderland earlier. From a Leeds perspective, they started all right. They got their win against Everton, but then they got thumped by Arsenal. But that's sort of what you'd expect. So I'd say so far, Leeds have taken 3 points from the possible 3 points realistically. From a Newcastle perspective, they've only taken 1 point from a possible 6. But I would actually say they probably deserved all 6. I thought they were the better team in the Villa game, and they were the better team in the Liverpool game. So I think this is going to be a really interesting battle. But the key thing for why I think Leeds will fall short is with Tanaka being out. Tanaka is Leeds' best player and most important, and he's out with a knee injury, and this could be a real problem for Leeds in this fixture and fixtures moving on. And for that reason, I'm going to go with a convincing 3-1 win to the Geordies. Moving on to Brighton, Manchester City, two teams that will be looking to bounce back after disappointment last weekend. Everton obviously winning against Brighton, even though Brighton had about as many chances as Everton, including a penalty, but they couldn't hit the back of the net. A problem we saw last season, and it looks like we may continue to see, as we saw a very similar result in their game against Fulham, where they absolutely dominated, they toyed away, but they didn't take their chances, and Fulham found a way right at the end to draw the game. It's a trend that we've seen for Brighton for the last year now under Hertzler, and that's got to change, otherwise Brighton will keep dropping points where they should be winning. Looking from a Manchester City perspective, City started well this season, winning 4-0 and really impressed me, but they actually had some flaws in that game, which I think went a bit unnoticed. They did look susceptible defensively inside that first 30 minutes, but Wolves never really converted any of those chances. And Tijani Rangers sort of stole the show, and after that sort of 30-minute period. They also lost to Spurs, where Thomas Frank actually outclassed Pep Guardiola, and that's starting to become a bit of a problem. Pep Guardiola seems to be getting outclassed way too often, and I actually think this could happen again. I think Hertzler might do him. I think it's going to end in a 2-1 win for Brighton. Moving on to Nottingham Forest versus West Ham, and I can only see one result, and I am so convinced that Nottingham Forest are going to absolutely smash West Ham United. And it's not even because of Nottingham Forest's quality. I'm going to mention it slightly just now, and then sort of go over to the West Ham perspective. Nottingham Forest have good players. They have Dan Ndoye, Hudson-Odoi, Wood, Gibbs-White, which they're going to absolutely expose West Ham. Looking at West Ham, moving on to the biggest game of the Premier League so far this season, and we have Liverpool versus Arsenal, or you could say champions versus pretenders. This is a massive game at Anfield this weekend, and I am really excited to see if my team Liverpool can come out on top. I do think we can, but I also think there's a lot of issues that could come with this game. Arsenal, strong on set pieces, brilliant in the air, and that will cause Liverpool massive problems. We saw in the Newcastle game, we're very susceptible to set pieces. Our team seems short, and this could cause us some massive problems. As well as this, we've still got Jeremy Frimpong out, but Szoboszlai was brilliant at right back, so I'm not hugely concerned about this injury. We've also got Maka out in midfield potentially, but I think we should be all right, and I think McAllister will be fine. So I think that's fine for Liverpool. I think we're all right. Our injuries could cause us some problems, but I think we'll be able to get through those. Where am I concerned, though, for Liverpool? Milos Kerkez, poor game so far. Obviously, I've already mentioned it, set pieces. So weak on that Bruno first goal. Wirtz has struggled so far. I'm hoping this might be the first game we really see, apart from the Community Shield, the quality of Florian Wirtz. Looking at an Arsenal injuries problems, they've got Saka out. This is a major threat gone. But Madueke has been alright. I've been critical of the signing, but I do think this is the sort of situation where you could use a player like Noni Madueke. Kai Havertz out. I think that's not really a problem. Erdegaard potentially out once again. I think is able to come and slot in and sort of fix that up. And Jesus obviously out, and we all know he's going to be out injured, and White out, but they've got Timber. So I don't think injuries are going to play a huge factor. The only big one is Saka, in my opinion. Even though both of these sides haven't dropped a point so far, they probably should have. Liverpool definitely should have dropped points at Newcastle, and they were lucky to get away with the win. They played well at points, but they were also terrible for about 90% of the game, and Newcastle had a red card. Liverpool were shambolic in the second half and really deserved to drop points. They also were so bad from set pieces, which is a real concern going into this game. Arsenal, very similar against Manchester United, should have lost, but they've found a way to win. They didn't create a lot against United. Liverpool at least created, I guess, a bit against Newcastle, but they were very solid defensively, Arsenal at points, and that got them through. But United showed some poor finishing, and you would have expected United to go on and win that game. So I guess you can say both sides have played poor but found ways to win. So you can look at this as, I guess, a positive or a negative. The positive being that at least they're finding ways to win, but I'm looking more at sort of the negative side for both teams. I think what will really paint the picture for this game is if you look at the home record between these two teams in the last 8 games. Liverpool have been really dominant at home, but so in the last 3 games, they've actually dropped points and drawn with Arsenal. So that's what I actually think will happen in this game. And for this reason, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw between Liverpool and Arsenal. Moving on to the final game of the weekend, and it is between Aston Villa and Crystal Palace. I'm really struggling to pick a winner in this game. I think this is a really difficult game, mainly because Villa just haven't been on it. They lost 1-0 to Brentford, drew 0 with Newcastle, and they just haven't looked convincing, Villa. I think there's something wrong with the club, and I just can't quite put my finger on it right now, but players look disinterested, and I do sort of a little bit of a theory, and that might be the fact that PSR not being able to bring in players, it's really not being allowed Villa to rejuvenate the squad. What Villa did last time is in January they brought in players like Rashford, Excited, and Asensio, who they've been in talks with again. I think they'd be a good signing for Villa. I think he did really well there, and obviously brought in Daniel Marlin, who's still there, and they're obviously without Kamara. From a Palace perspective, they just lost Eze. They're looking at some transfer targets, potential replacements for Iberiche. But they've just played their game in Europe and drew 0-0, and it was away from home, and I think this could take a bit of effect on Crystal Palace. I am really struggling to pick a winner for this game, so for that reason, I'm going to go with 0-0. Thank you everyone for watching the video, it's much appreciated. If you enjoy what you see, please like and subscribe and turn those notifications on so you can catch my next videos, which will be on is Ruben Amorim the problem at Manchester United, who has had the best transfer window, and just look what games were really important over the weekend. I think will have determining factors on the rest of the season. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video.